This podcast is part of the Spoon Podcast Network, home of smart conversations that feed your mind.
Okay. I love that intro music, man. It's so good.
I was saying that I don't play it loud enough in your show. I think I need to increase the volume for the intro. And for the listeners at home, because we've already started the podcast, what do you do for work?
Currently, I'm serving as Chief Technology Officer at a cultivated meat company called O-Meat here in Los Angeles. But, you know, I'm a professional scientist first and foremost. So I've worked across foods and biopharmaceuticals and all kinds of stuff. But recently, in the last 10 years of my life, designing food.
Designing yummy food.
Yeah, designing actual meat products. And if you haven't heard of cultivated meat, it's really cool, probably very weird concept. But the bottom line is you take living animal cells from an animal, like a cow or chicken, and then since they're just, as long as you feed them, they'll keep growing just like anything. You feed them, amino acids and vitamins and minerals and water and all that stuff, and they'll grow more meat. And you can do it outside of their body, and you get actual, muscle tissue that you can then turn into all the delicious products you eat. And the whole point is to do it sustainably and not have to grow and kill as many animals as we do every year.
That part's cool, but it's funny when you mention out of the body. I think a lot of people start, getting a little like, wait, how's this happening? They question the idea of muscle being grown. And I think that's one of the kind of detractors of people are like, I don't know.
Yeah. And you know what? I always tell people, like, I get it. I get that that's weird. I've been doing this for 10 years. I design these products and I still think it's a little weird.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not that weird. I mean, like, we figured out ways to improve how we grow animals and plants and stuff for the last 10,000 years. So to me, this is kind of like the next step. And I think if you just get the products, if you're able to buy them, which you can't buy much of them right now, but if you get a bunch of them and try them, I'm certain will convince you that they're worth buying again.
I mean, people adopted to just in general veggie meat, right? And that took a while. What we should look at, I don't know what the timeline is for that, but like how long that took. But now it's like totally normal and it's part of my like daily diet. Even growing up, I think it was off and on, but they didn't sell it as many places. And now it's just like ubiquitous, veggie stuff, like
right.
Fake chicken and stuff like that.
Carlos, I think that the main impediment is meat eaters. They really just want to be able to like substitute in something that like gives them the meat experience. And for a lot of veggie products, just can't do it.
Yeah.
So cultivated meat is supposed to be sort of that, okay, this is a one-to-one direct substitution. It's the same thing you've gotten. So anyway, that's what I do on a daily basis, and it's a lot of fun. But there's always the next thing that we always have to think about in biology and technology and how that's going to impact the world.
Well, that's a perfect segue for the next thing, because this show is about the next thing in AI. And basically, I want to talk to you today about food tech, ag tech, just, I don't know, food in general, using AI. We talked to a lot of people on this show from different kind of walks of life, different companies, and how they're using it. I think we talked off podcast about how to approach this. And one of the ways is how it's being used now, which you were telling me there's a couple different ways.
That's right. There's, the benefit of being where I'm at, I get to see where things are going and how people are using new technologies as we figure them out. To be fair, like, we don't have it all figured out. Like, we are still in sort of I would say like the earliest days of AI and biology. But there are two things that are emerging. One, broadly, is the use of AI to sort of discover, amend, change, or improve upon nature, like just for food specifically. Like, how do we use it to discover things or accelerate discovery, sort of like Google's Alpha Evolve. And we can talk about that. And then the other aspect is, and I'll use an analogy to visual effects because that's just what's in my mind, which is like, you can create a digital twin, for an actor, if you don't want to put them in a dangerous situation or you want to see how it might play out, a digi double as it's called. Well, you can create now. People are creating digi doubles for their biological systems. So, like, instead of actually running the experiment with living cells or whatever, they are creating an AI environment where they can see what's going to happen in the future and run out multiple experiments before they ever actually do the actual
Mm.
experiment.
Yeah, that seems like a super like also money saver as well, right? Like, I mean, you're basically running a bunch of experiments for I won't say no cost because there's GPU, et cetera, but it's cheaper, right, than doing the actual experiments.
Yeah, my brother's a chemist, and he always jokes with me. He'd always say, like, I don't know how you get meaningful data in biology. Like, to me, chemistry is very precise. It's reactants, result, and efficiency. But in biology, everything's sort of stochastic and probabilities, and it might work,
Mm.
and you don't know. It's more like quantum mechanics. And I think that's why we haven't seen as much AI in biology up to this point, or biotechnology or food production, because there is so much inherent variability. You have to be able to account for that. And until recently, I don't know that we could have in our models. And now we can. So now you can grow, and I say this in air quotes for those listening, you can grow trillions of cells in a bioreactor, and you can keep track of each individual one and its like fate over time, which is
Yep.
incredible with a high degree of accuracy.
Yeah, that's like the simulation stuff. I mean, there's so much simulation stuff that can be done with just, I mean, computer programs in general. I mean, I'm a big fan of like The Sims and all the simulation games and stuff. And it's just amazing to see. Like a perfect example is Dwarf Fortress. Do you know that game?
No, my
Okay,
brothers are, but I'm so tell me about it.
the short version of that game, it's just fascinating. It's been around for so many years, but it's the simulation of these this little dwarf community with these like minor dwarves, in a fantasy world, and you can create them. But then once you create them, they kind of do their own thing, and you can like affect the world a bit and make rules and stuff. But they're gonna like do what they do, and no one game is the same, right? Because it's like just watching it play out. But it's endlessly fascinating because these results that you didn't think were going to happen, and just can think of that as a science experiment, right? Like if you were doing that same type of thing with adding all these different kind of factors, and then you go right, and you go, what is that? What is it going to do? That's a game world, but we do that with biology.
Well, that reminds me of. I mean, there's this idea of in science, we chaotic systems, and I don't mean like the common usage of the word chaotic. I mean the scientific or mathematical definition, which is chaos is a chaotic system is something where the initial conditions of the system, the way you set it up, um, meaningfully change the outcome with tiny imperceptible variations that are in the initial setup. So you could never, so just like slightly having something off every time. Um, and you get, trillions of different outcomes. It's sort of like what was it, Doctor Strange in the Marvel movies. Like he was like, I
Mm-hmm.
checked 16 million options and only one came through. That's a
Yeah,
that's a chaotic system.
yeah.
Um, Biology is like that, and modeling that in AI has been like a goal. It's how do you model a chaotic system accurately? Not that we couldn't do it, but how do you do it to design a product? That's where things get very interesting, and that's where people are doing it. Like right now for food ingredients,
Well, to
using
jump really
chaos to
quick to the
advantage.
future, when you say how, I immediately go to quantum computers.
Yeah,
I mean, if we jump that
exactly right.
far, right?
I don't know that we've seen a direct application yet, but it would be curious because those are, I mean, this, like that the quantum computers are for a very distinct problem set compared to traditional logical or conventional computers. Um, but I'd be curious to see how that's used. But we are seeing companies develop AI systems successfully and discovering brand new proteins that we've never found in food, and using them for in food products that will be on market the next year or two.
That
And that's
yeah,
like
that's
a
a
thing
direct
that people are
application right
doing.
there.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the idea of like in food, you can. There's always I always used to tell my teams when I was designing the first cultivated meat product at Upside Foods. I would often tell them, like, we have two phases and we can do them in either order. It doesn't matter, but like we have to do these two phases. And one is focusing on what meat is and making that maximally enjoyable. And then the other is what can meat be? So what can meat be? And I feel like AI is taking us into the what can meat be aspect,
Mm-hmm.
or in general, just extrapolating, just food in general. And I think that's super cool. Now, there's a third use case I haven't mentioned yet, but
Okay.
I think it's important. And I don't think this is just relegated to food, but I'm curious what you think. I strongly believe that we are going to start seeing startups get funding and be successful or crash and burn, all the normal things, with one human co-founder and a ChatGPT co-founder.
Mm.
I think that we're going to start seeing AI agents, or at least AI systems, perform the role of a technical co-founder in certain companies. Because I think one of the largest things is that a lot of people with business backgrounds want to start companies. They spend a long time searching for technical co-founders, someone with a
Yes.
science background. It's hard. And scientists often don't think business wise, but I think that a Claude, a ChatGPT, whatever, Cursor, like you could set that up. And I think people are going to start building companies with an AI co-founder. And I think that's
100%.
going super. I don't know if that even, maybe it's already happened.
Well, I can tell you where it's already happened, and a perfect parallel is stuff I've done myself as well. Is use Cursor, like you mentioned, which for those at home don't know, it's a program that allows you to pretty much natural language talk to a ChatGPT or whatever different model you have, LLM, and then code with it right there within the interface. It's beautiful, by the way. I think they just got bought, I want to say, or they're about to be. But so with Cursor right now, I can make a video game, and that's one of my huge walls of blocking me of making the game of my dreams has been that I can't code enough, right? Or I try to use Unity or Unreal or something. And I made a couple games in Construct, which is like a 2D platformer engine, which is easier for me. But now I don't have to worry about that. My technical co-founder, my dev, is the LLM, right? And it's helping me make the game that I want. This is already happening for thousands of people. They're making games and they're releasing them, and it's just happening. So the short answer is yeah, of course. Like, I think to jump forward into the next part of our conversation, which is the future, I mean, it's just like a smartphone, right? Like, I keep iterating this in many shows, but like this wasn't around, and now it's just, of course. AI is the same thing, so it's just ubiquitous at some point, and we go, oh yeah, that's a company, and that's it. What they're using to get there is AI and technology and blah, 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 and a quantum computer later. But I just think that it's just part of the chain, right?
Yeah. I'm constantly surprised. I'm often asked about sort of like what people will presume is the premature death of X industry, lab grown meat or plant based, burgers or something, whatever, pick a thing. And I'm really surprised at how often we get a failure of imagination around the fact that like the one thing we can count on in food innovation is the metronome like beat of progress and innovation that does set in. That like effectively today is the most advanced we'll ever be. And they can't imagine, critics will often cannot imagine a world that has significantly more technology, science, and innovation in it tomorrow than it does today that would solve some of these problems. And that always gets me because I'm always like, okay, we can't do it today. But for like what you were saying as well, like vibe coding out a whole video game or new food product, why can't we? Like why can't we assume that like we'll solve this? That's a problem to be solved. It's not forbidden by the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't we solve it?
And we can break the laws of physics as well by using a quantum computer. It's a whole other podcast, and I really do want to get into it at some point.
Yeah.
But I've been
I have to guess
researching.
for you on that one. You'll have to find somebody else. I don't know.
Okay, I will. I'll get another guess. But
I have to get a Google AI researcher or somebody in.
one of my favorite things in the world since, like, I don't know, I was a young person is quantum physics. Like, I've read every book. It's weird. Like, I've a weird fascination about it because it is the the fabric of reality. Like, and so I guess there's a reason why I have fascination with it because I just want to understand what this is, what all of this is, and yes, it's energy and manifestation and what we want it to be, but it's also like made up of these really weird particles. And so I've just been blown away by that. And so I'm endlessly fascinated. And so now that we have quantum computers, which I'll go into it for 2 seconds, they are like the worst they'll ever be, that whole thing. They're, not very good even. And it's because we don't understand how to harness them and lower the temperature right now, or actually increase the temperature. Right now, they have to be these really cold states. And it's just, not functional. When it becomes a smartphone, and this is a quantum phone or quantum, computer at your desk, then we're dealing with a whole new set of rules because essentially quantum computers can work at the quantum level, which means they don't process ones and zeros separately. They process them together, which means they can do things very fast. Right now, they attempt or looks like they're doing them fast, but they're not because we're not totally utilizing what it means to be a quantum state, which is about qubits and a whole other thing. But um, I say that because, yeah, of course, like if we want to visualize it, we can attach our ideas about what food could be to whatever new technology comes down the pike. But to limit ourselves, I think, is what you're getting at is a crime.
Well, it's even it's weirder because it's saying what I hear from critics is I don't not only do I not want this technology to exist, but I'm too afraid to say that. I actively want to lobby for a quote unquote more traditional ancient way of doing something because I for some reason believe that's better. And we get into sort of always as things do to naturalistic fallacy. And what they tend to forget is all of the technology that makes quote unquote conventional growing most efficient it's ever been, the safest it's ever been. So it's for me, it's a I feel like a backdoor to protectionism, um, and like outright banning of certain technologies, and I just don't feel like that's a healthy way to feed people. I think the goal should be how do we feed people safe and nutritious food, and we should use every goddamn tool we have available to us that can do that. And if that's AI, good, good. And the fact that I'm seeing folks saying like, no, 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 like we have to go back to regressive ways where the methods are less efficient, but they produce, and they produce, not even as good a nutritionist product. We should use those, but less people will be able to eat or it'll be more expensive. So I don't know. I just feel like technology and science should be in service of the betterment of the planet and its inhabitants. And I don't know. So some of this food innovations, like scaremongering, is built on just this idea of like the old ways were better, and I just don't
Yeah.
believe that.
But don't you think that that will just probably lose out at some point because it has to? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, from a very simple business mindset, as long as if people want to buy it, it will be available. Like
right.
I think that the general rule of thumb is like if people want it, they will get it. Somebody will
Also,
find a way to make it for them.
just really quick to go back to that thought, kind of this popped up when you said like the old ways. Some of the old ways were terrible or are terrible. Like just spraying, chemicals on things. Like that was the best technology we had, right? At some point. I remember like what was it? A documentary they were going to look at corn. This is like current day. And the guy was like, okay, I'm gonna take out this corn and I'm gonna, take a bite out of it. He's like, oh no, you can't eat it. It hasn't been treated yet. You can't just like take out the corn off the field and eat it. What are you crazy? And so like, yeah, I think there's some old ways that are terrible.
Yeah, and even in that example, like we we started out spraying pesticides, like organic pesticides, which you need, for example, a lot of organic pesticide in order to have the same effect as a small dose. And then we realized we could use certain synthetics, and not only were they safer, you could use them in like fractions of the concentration.
Mm.
So you could get away with using much less, which meant there was much less chance any of that would be in the food system. But we're still, frankly, hell bent on this idea in this particular example of using an older technology that is demonstrably worse, and we have to use more of it um, to service some, idealistic goal of the past.
Yeah. Well, this is the last section of our podcast, and I think we kind of transition to it nicely. Is that what do you see the future being like when it comes to food tech, just food in general, and AI merging? We've kind of hit on a bunch of things today already, but is there something that maybe you'd like to see it help out with?
I I would like to see, well, one, selfishly, I'd love to see cultivated meat and all these alternative protein production systems succeed, like on market. I want consumers to sort of weigh in and decide do they want them or not. And then, but just sort of more broadly, first off, I'll admit, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I think any scientist will tell you that. Good scientist will say, like, I don't actually know. But from my perch, I think we'll start seeing, hopefully, ingredients in foods which we have never historically consumed. Right now,
Mm,
we are in the field of science where we take things that nature has spent millions of years, billions of years evolving, make them better, change them, and then we eat them. But we have never just divined out a brand new food that has never been eaten before. And I think AI is going to do that for us. I think we're going to
mm.
finally see it could be a new life form, frankly. Like, I've always maintained that humans will create the first aliens. Like, we will create the first new life form that's never been on Earth.
And then we'll eat them.
And then, as we always do, we will eat
Yeah.
them. Um,
That's the
and I,
that's the podcast name. We're going to create aliens and then we're going to eat them.
I mean, I say this without sort of a moral position. I just think, like, observing humanity, that's what we tend to do. We find ways to go, can we eat part of this?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that we'll end up creating some form of new food that's never been consumed before, whether that be plants or
Interesting.
animals or whatever. Keep in mind, the plants and animals we eat on this planet is the small, like, less than 0.01% of all the available species that we could potentially eat. We just did it because they were domesticatable. So there's a whole world of potentially absolutely delicious things to eat that we've never considered because it's like, a river snail or,
Yeah.
it's a bug on the side of a tree and but we could grow parts of it artificially and support a lot of people.
I have had those chocolate covered crickets, and they were
I
not
have
bad.
too. Not good.
They're not good, but they were not bad. The ones I had like cinnamon or something, so there was like extra flavor. And I had it on a live show on stage, and I was like, not bad.
Well, I'll tell you, the joke in food when we design food, cinnamon is sort of like the savior of all sins because
That's
it's
maybe
it's
it.
it's put in foods where you need to absolutely mask everything. So
That's what it
I always a
was.
little suspect with something cinnamon flavor. I'm like, the people doing this couldn't figure out how to make this taste good any other way.
I didn't know. That's the trick. Okay, that was it. Yeah. To close that thought real quick, I think I also saw a company, I think at one of our summits, the Smart Kitchen Summit, that was using AI to just create flavors, right? So it's similar to what you were saying, like create new foods, but also just create different flavors, which we've never tasted before, which obviously sounds good to me. So I think both those are good
Yeah.
iterations.
Well, to your point too, like, there's actual companies doing this work, and that I mentioned, on the designing new food ingredient side, there's the one that comes to mind is Shiru, run by my friend Jasmine Hume, who this was her brainchild as a chemist. And they're designing new food ingredients. And then on the modeling DigiDouble side, Prolific Machines, who I used to work with, full disclosure, but they're designing both food and pharma using AI systems where they're modeling out the entire bioreactor. And it is just unbelievable to me that we're able to do that. So, I mean, it's not just theoretical,
Yeah,
it's actual companies doing this today.
it's happening right now. Well, Eric, thank you so much for being on the show. You're on my comeback show, the Spoonful of AI show, coming back to the spoon. Also, please check out Food Truths, your show. When you got a new episode, what's going on? Give me a preview of a new show coming up.
So I'm interviewing the former United States Department of Secretaries, former U.S. Department of Agriculture Secretary Ann Veneman, who served for Bush Jr. and sort of like sat on the organics and then also all this
Whoa.
biotechnology. And she's just an incredible human being with a ton of experience. And yeah, if you want to hear long, in-depth discussions about food, hop on over to the other show on Food Truths here on the Spoon Podcast Network.
There you go. Giving the plug at the end. Eric, thanks so
Plugging it.
much. And also go download Dwarf Fortress. I'm telling you, it's fascinating.
Will do.